All right, here we go, part 2. All right, so FICA. Another thing FICA did besides contribution limits, it also put expenditure limits. Again, you have to know the difference. All right, I want Mac to get elected to Congress. I give him money. What is that? A contribution. I put a billboard up on 120 that says Homes for Congress. What is that? Expenditure. You see the difference? All right, one I'm giving him money to spend, the other one I'm spending money on my behalf. Okay, this put limits on how much candidates can spend and how much groups independent of the candidates can spend. Okay, you need to know that term. It's a note card for Chapter 14. It's called an independent expenditure. Okay, it's money spent outside of the campaign by a different group. Today, 2013, most independent expenditures come from super PACs. All right, back then it would have been PACs, political parties, 527s, things like that. Okay, so government's trying to limit how much you spend and how much you give to candidates at the same time. All right, third thing, establish public funding of campaigns. What this means is the government is going to give presidential candidates money that they can spend. All right, the trade-off is when they say, here's how much money you can spend in this election, that's all you get to spend. All right, you can match whatever they give you, and that's like your salary cap, if you want to use a sports term for that one. Okay, and they did it for primaries and they did it for presidential elections. All of you that have jobs, you contribute to the presidential election fund by checking what? Do you want $3 to go to this on your income tax? All right, if you check that, that puts money into a general pool. That money gets distributed to any candidates that qualify, and they match it up to a certain amount. Okay, Obama did not take that in the last election, and this election, so most people feel it's kind of dead, even though the law still technically is in place. So right now, all that money is just sitting there in the Treasury for people to use when the next round of candidates come about. Okay? What do third parties have to do to get the money? Too high. Arden said 15%. Jude said 15%. 5%. 5% gets you matching funds. 15% gets you in the debates. All right, you got to average 15% in all those polls that don't even ask you who's in there. All right, so here's public financing, just a little quick cartoon there, okay? This was right after Obama made that decision to not accept public money. As you see down here, public campaign financing is kind of being squashed. And why is Obama not, or why is he killing it? Because he's taking all the money on his own. He doesn't need the public money, all right? No question necessary for that one, all right? So this graph kind of shows you the campaign costs. See how they've increased up to $600 million by 2004. Public funds you see kind of go up and then start to dwindle by 2004 as well. Okay, so it worked for a little while and then more money got into the system. All right, another Obama question. Okay, so green energy. You might remember he took some heat for backing a company called Solyndra a few years ago. Okay, so you give me the green and I'll give you the taxpayers' green. So why do people contribute money to President Obama? What do they want? Right. They want some kind of subsidy or some kind of government benefit in return. Same thing happens with the Republicans. All right? Forget the question. All right. And then the final thing that FICA did is it created the Federal Elections Commission, which is who some of you will be defending in the Supreme Court case, which disclosed all the funds that are distributed and gave some enforcement power to the Federal Election Commission to put some teeth into the election laws. All right, let's see if we can get this one. Federal Elections Commission, which type of bureaucratic agency is it? It's an independent executive, because what is the only thing they can do with campaign finance laws? They can enforce them. Executive agencies enforce the laws. If it was regulatory, they would make the laws or make the rules. Who makes all the campaign finance laws? Congress does. What's kind of odd about that? It affects them. So they write the laws that benefit their parties. Kind of interesting how that works out. All right. So the Supreme Court ruled that there can be no limits on candidates' expenditures of their own funds, since that is considered free speech. That is the center of the Supreme Court case that we're arguing, all right? And that case was Buckley versus Valeo, okay? In your notes, when you're studying for the exam, Buckley, Valeo, free speech, you're done, all right? That's pretty much what they're going to ask you. But make sure you know that spending money is considered free speech. Not donating money but that's what we're going to argue. That might come up in this court case. Yes. Correct. So wealthy candidates, Ross Perot ran. He spent, I want to say, close to $1 billion of his own money to run for office. Lost, but he spent all of his own money, and that was perfectly legal. Right. So it shows you money doesn't buy an election. All right. It just shows you that you have a big benefit, but you still have to be a good candidate to do that. All right. So here's how Buckley Valeo works. All right. I'm going to actually make this a full screen here. All right. All right. So the before side is after FICA was passed. You already have this list in your notes. The before is already in your list. Don't write it again. All right. After Buckley, and you will be reading this in class tomorrow or today, depending on which period you're in. All right. Here's what the ruling said. All right. They found the limit of how much a candidate can give their own campaign to be unconstitutional. All right. That violates freedom of speech. If I have a bunch of money, I should be allowed to spend it however I want to. Okay. So benefit to the rich candidates. All right. We have this myth that money buys elections. Mitt Romney had a ton of money. He didn't win. All right. You still got to be a good candidate. Okay. The bigger thing is any kind of expenditure. All expenditure limits were declared unconstitutional, again, because it's considered free speech. So how much a candidate can spend cannot be capped, and how much a group independent of a candidate can spend cannot be capped either. All right? The McCutcheon versus FEC case we're arguing on Thursday centers on this limit right here. Okay? How much individuals can give. Because right now the limit is somewhere in the neighborhood of close to 50, 60,000. I think somewhere in that neighborhood is how much you can give in an election all across the board. And this McCutcheon person is arguing that that is unconstitutional, that he should be allowed to give as much money as he wants to a candidate. Okay? Now look at the before column and tell me why we theoretically this is the argument for one of the sides. Why should we not worry how much money we give a candidate? Let's say Trump wants to give Marco Rubio $10 billion for his campaign. Why should we not worry about that? Okay, when it doesn't buy elections, what in the before column implies that we won't have to worry about that? What will Marco Rubio be forced to do with that $10 billion? He will have to disclose it. And if we as voters see that Marco Rubio got $10 billion from somebody, we should really question whether or not that candidate's on the up and up. All right, so this is supposed to prevent the bribery, theoretically speaking. All right, so the whole thing centers around free speech, whether or not we can limit how much you give candidates. Another argument is since we can only give so much to candidates, but we have a lot more money, where does it all go? It's a bird, it's a plane, it's they all go to super PACs, and the super PACs, that's all anonymous donors. All right, if Bull Salsy wants to give $1 million to Crossroads for Freedom, he can, and there's nothing we can do about it. All right, and he doesn't have to report that. Nobody will know where that's coming from. All right, so does this make sense? Any questions? I'm going to pause for these guys or stop it for first hour.